Welcome to Beyond the Bridge by Local Umbrella Media. My name's Brad Weber. I'm here at the IQ Podcast Studios in beautiful Coronado. And my guest today is Brett Davis with IQ Podcast. Welcome to the show, Brett.
Well, thank you for interviewing me in my own studio.
That was really convenient. Thanks for making it so easy for me, for both of us.
Well, I love your publications and I love what you're doing. And I tell you, they're eye-catching and the stories are great. I'm glad that we have somebody that's not forgetting about the communities.
I appreciate that. Thanks for noticing that.
Sure.
We try hard, and that's what we're here for. So tell me a little bit about you, your background, why you got into media and how you got into media, and just a little history on IQ Podcast.
So I started with ESPN Radio, and that was my first gig, and really enjoyed working with them and got a good basic understanding of, never planned on getting in. I mean, years ago in college, I wrote for the college paper and always thought, I'd probably be good at media. And then I had a counselor tell me that I should get a business degree. So I ended up getting the business degree, but always in the back of my mind, for some reason, I just loved, the college paper and Southwestern College. And I loved being involved and doing stories. And I thought it was fascinating, and I thought I was decent at it. I thought I could get by on it. And so years later, I got this opportunity, and ESPN asked me, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing your own show?" And I said, "Well, what would I talk about?" And they said, "No, we think you would do good. What would you like to talk about?" And I said, "Well, I want to talk about sports, and you're a sports station." And they said, "Well, we are." And I said, "Well, I don't want to just talk about batting averages and layups, scoring, and touchdowns. I want to talk about everyday heroes." Over the underdog, people overcoming obstacles, because I think you can apply those stories with everybody every day that's fighting to get ahead.
Mm-hmm.
We all can relate in some way or the other of feeling like we're the underdog.
Yep.
And the guy looked at me and he says, "Well, that's nice." He said, "But I don't think that's going to work." And so I'll tell you what. And I talked to Sarah about it, of course, because she's the real boss. And I said, "Hey, I want to do this show." And I said, "They're giving me kind of a hard time because they don't think it'll work. Can we maybe put some money into the show?"
Mm-hmm.
That's very risky when you say things like that. But she said, "Yeah, let's do it." So I went back to them and I said, "We're willing to put in half the budget we believe in it, and we'll come in half partners. That way we lose too if you lose."
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I said, "Well, we don't believe it's going to work, but go ahead. We'll go ahead and do it. We'll work it out." So one day a week, we did the show like we're doing, at KCBQ radio now. And would you believe by the end of the month, we were at the very top. We were number one. In 4 weeks, we went to the number one spot.
Wow.
And that was in the first 4 weeks. And we stayed there for a whole year.
You talked him into a good decision. Nice.
But it's a story that goes over and over. I mean, but the end result is people overcoming the obstacle, but not only doing that, but they don't forget where they came from, community,
mm-hmm.
and then they give back in some way.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just take. They give back, and they don't forget those roots. So I think that's where this whole thing started.
Okay, so that's how you came up with the idea of IQ Podcast.
So let's go a little further ahead. So after ESPN Radio, KCBQ interviewed me. I interviewed actually the KUSI. You remember Turco?
Of course.
So when Turco retired, they wanted me to be the new Turco.
Oh, that would have been nice.
That would have been interesting. I can still be Turco on my own rules.
Absolutely.
Now, though. But so I interviewed with them. I talked to KCBQ, and then there was another station. I can't remember which one. They had heard that I was leaving, and KCBQ Sarah and I went there, and it makes a difference when you go somewhere and you feel welcomed.
Of course.
And when we went there, they had our names, welcome. We look forward to meeting you. It was just on the front of like on a little digital board. Welcome, Brett. And actually, it was Sarah and Brett, which really it's the way it really is.
That was smart.
They knew it anyway. And we sat in the room about 20 executives,
mm-hmm.
taking notes, asking questions. I felt like I was being investigated. And we did the interview, and then they all looked at me and they all kind of just smiled, and they said, "So when are you going to start?"
Wow.
I said, "I didn't know I got the job." "Oh yeah, you answered your questions." It was like a 2-hour interview, and we were ecstatic. And so we started there. And then, So things have gone well there.
Mhm.
I've never had a problem at KCBQ. It's a wonderful station.
It is a good station.
Steve is a wonderful general manager over there, and he's given me every opportunity, and we work really well together. And along the way, I said, "Hey, this is great, but what are you doing for podcasts?" We don't get into podcasts. We don't do that stuff. He said that at the time. Since then, Salem Media has about 120 stations around the United States. They just recently bought a podcast.
Oh yeah.
Not ours, of course. But so I said, I want to do this podcast. And at the time, they weren't looking at podcasts because we've been doing this for a little over a year now. And he says, well, you know what? Why don't you go ahead and why don't you do it? He says, and if you want to use me as a reference, you know, I'm good as gold. You're good as gold, and I'll give you a good referral. And so he did, and we got the office, and I just saw that there was more storytelling that could be done with podcast, and I really wanted to do that because I think when you love what you're doing, it makes a difference, and I think people can tell too.
Absolutely, and you discover things people you wouldn't never have heard about otherwise.
And radio is great because you could, you know, I grew up on radio listening to radio with my grandmother, and I loved listening to stories, and I just even used to listen to some of the old. Like The Shadow, things like that. And you'd use your own imagination, and, you know, with your mind, you could do a lot of different things. But there's something visual about doing podcasts like we're doing right now. I think people can see you get more out of that.
Yeah, it's real.
Do you remember the Nixon and Kennedy debate? Do you remember the clips on it?
I have seen clips on it. Yes.
So did you hear the story about that?
I'm not sure.
You probably have. So Nixon was the seasoned politician. Of course, John Kennedy was the young guy. You know, he had experience as a senator. Good looking guy, by the way, very charismatic, dressed to the nines.
Of course.
And you know, it was a very close race. But people that heard the debate on the radio, everybody agreed that Nixon won. But when they saw it on television, they gave it to Kennedy.
Right.
Because Nixon apparently was sick that night. He had the flu, and he was fighting the flu, and you know, he looked sweaty and he looked nervous, and because he had the flu, he didn't feel good. So he didn't look really great. And Kennedy looked, you know, young and fresh and energetic.
Of course.
But it just shows you visually what you can do differently with that. Right. And I got to say, with IQ Podcast, we are no longer just a podcast. We also have IQ Podcast, the magazine. Do you have
beautiful magazine?
Have a copy of the magazine, Sarah?
It's gorgeous.
We can have, please, so people can see that. We can hand that to Brad.
It's absolutely.
It could even give him the first issue or the latest issue.
Well, it's coming.
It's coming.
Oh, here we go. Let's go show everyone. So yes, can you see this? It's absolutely a gorgeous magazine. It's got a lot of your guests on here, some beautiful photography, lots of information, interviews, and very well done for someone that hasn't, this is your very first issue.
Second.
This is your second issue. Okay, I've seen your first one too.
This is the latest. This is the latest. Oh, there's another issue. There's the first issue. Well, you're really.
Here's the first.
She's
one.
really prepared.
Bring all the props here, but they're beautiful. They're very well done, and really professional presentation. Congrats.
So again, you know, the thing is, I don't think you ever forget the writing roots or the publishing part of it, because I love radio, but I thought, man, we're doing well. I like the magazine. It came out nice. Sarah did a phenomenal job. She's now editor-in-chief. I retired and walked away from that. Let her take that reign because she really is the editor-in-chief. And I'm just a publisher and the CEO. And she's really the one that makes everything look nice. So the magazine came because I thought it would be another way of storytelling. And we never intended on doing paper. And I found that more and more people I talked to, they're like, well, it's great you got a digital magazine, but where's the real one?
Well, you're talking to someone
that's you.
I'm not going to argue about that. I like to say print is the new media. People forgot about it.
The thing is, I love, if you go to my place, you probably can find some good magazines you'd want to take home. I've got every magazine from years back. I've always collected them, and I've always studied them and looked at them because I think it's interesting the way they're put. To me, they're like a form of art.
Yeah, they are. They're timeless, and they can be. And you know, even on lots of genres, it just lasts longer. Something you've heard online or seen online, it's gone instantly.
Something about just holding it and looking at it and the smell of the paper and just there's something about that. That's just maybe the time we come from.
Yep.
But I think it's a great way to bring radio and print media and of course digital media, and then of course the radio show and then the podcast. So it's become a conglomerate of ways of telling stories. And I think somebody told me the other day, isn't print dead? I said, well, that's what they're saying, but not in my case, because there's so many vehicles that we're using to tell these stories. And more than ever right now, people need hope, because a lot of people are scared.
Right.
And they need to know that, you know what, there's a way. Here's a story I read, and I never would have thought about that unless I heard that on the podcast, or I read that in the magazine, or I heard that on the radio show. I think we need more good stories that bring us together. Now, I am political, but that's my Facebook page. It has nothing to do with the magazine. It has nothing to do with the radio show. A little bit on the radio, but not too much, because I think right now is a time for everybody to come together and find a way, like you said earlier, for red and blue, to find a way to come together and find ways to be different, yet respect each other's opinions.
Yeah. Well, I think you're doing the right thing with the magazine, because, people that you have trust and authority, and those things are very important right now. So it's just a better way to present certain things like that. So tell me about some of your guests and some of the things you've done. I know a lot of the guests you have are some of the things you have going on are community-based,
Sure.
Some nonprofits you're helping out, some teacher awards and things like that. Tell me about that.
So I think that the thing is that, like we said, community is the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time when I grew up in Chula Vista in the South Bay where everybody's parents, maybe they didn't hang out, maybe they weren't friends, but they had a way of knowing what was going on in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and one way was the grapevine, which is not the freeway, by the way, but the the way of getting to know what was going on. Everybody said, well, your mom wouldn't appreciate that, or I'm going to talk to your dad, and so communication really. I mean, we didn't even have the digital components that we have nowadays, but yet it seemed like news traveled fast, didn't it?
Right, of course.
So I think that that was one of the reasons that we went back to community, because I think somewhere along the way we needed to go back to basic simplicity, because things have gotten so crazy with the electronic world.
Yeah.
And print media, I think, is not dead. If anything, I think it's still very valuable, as you know. And I also think the digital, I think nowadays you've got to do a variety of these things and bring them together in order to get the stories across to the individuals. And the best thing anyone could ever tell me, I'm sure probably you too, is, thank you so much for your publication or your information. I really liked it. I was able to help myself out of a situation, or I learned something that I wasn't aware of. And I think really what we're in the business of doing is we're not in media, or we're not in publication. We're actually in the business of helping people.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
So I think that's probably what it's about for me, is connecting all the dots. And hey, there's been times where I've been lost and I didn't know what I was going to do, and I've had to research, and I've had to go. In our days, we would find ways to, and whether it's the library in the day, or to go to the bookstore and getting books, and I try to find ways to get myself out of circumstances, because I knew I could depend on that if I did the research. With that being said, sometimes you need that information to be kind of given to you at the right time when you're ready to read it or hear it too.
Of course. Yeah.
So that's what I love about what I do. And I'm sure it's probably what you like to do.
Absolutely. Too. Print is dead in kind of the news business, but the newslettery type of communication, supporting your neighbors, supporting the kids in school, that type of stuff is just, people love to be touched in that way.
Sure, they do.
Print is a great way to do it. So tell me about the event you have coming up for supporting the teachers.
Uh-huh.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
So the event's going to be April 16th on a Friday at Sequan. They're a partner of the event to honor the top 36 teachers. And the idea for this came about when I was talking to Attorney King, who's a great sponsor. I mean, he basically helped get this foundation for this studio off the ground and believed in the view and the vision and the idea. And I have to thank him for what he did. And this is him right there. Of course, we got to get a nice picture of it. So he's a giving guy. He gives back till, he's very, very picky about what he does, I can tell you. But he believed the first couple times I told him about the podcast studio. He's like, I don't know about that. I said, well, yeah, I'm coming to you because I want to get a little foundation, a little capital to get it off the ground. And he was very interesting the way he went about it because he brought his whole team to our meeting.
Wow.
I felt like it was like a KCBQ studios. I had all his staff there who were like in their 20s, mid 20s. He has all these young kids running around. I felt like I was their grandfather. And they would ask him, hey, King would say, so what do you think of that? What do you think of his idea for the podcast? Well, I think it's a great idea. Podcast King that's where you want to be. That's where it's at. This was a year ago.
Oh, great.
They weren't as hot as they are now. They're just starting to develop a little bit. And then he would go down the row and everybody agreed that the podcast format on top of the radio would be, so they all agreed. And he says, okay, I didn't think about it that way. So I got done later and he's like, I'm still not going to give you the money. So the third time I went in there to talk to him about advertising he was doing with this. And I left it dead because I don't like to beat a dead horse. And if it doesn't, I don't want to push anybody away. And I like him and respect him. And I left and he says, so-and-so is going to have your check for you. I said, well, you don't owe me yet. He says, well, it's okay. Just go get your check. So I figured it was for like the advertisement we're doing. Well, it was the capital to get this off the ground. And then I looked over at him. He kind of winked at me and went like that.
Nice.
And so very classy guy, very nice. He believed in the vision. And so of course we named the studio Attorney King because it should be, he believed in that. And then from that, he says, what else can we do? I says, I don't know. What do you want to do? Who do you like to work? He says, well, I like working with everybody. I says, but he has a huge respect for education because he was the youngest person to graduate from law school at the age of 19. He was already going to junior college right out of elementary school.
No kidding.
So he has this really strong foundation and belief that education is very important. And with that, he says, I know, let's have an event for teachers. I says, why don't we do the biggest event? They're already having one. I said, no, let's do a bigger event. Let's do something different and better than what it's already been doing. And instead of just saying this is teacher of the year and just pick one teacher, why don't we make sure that all of them are on the same basis and the same level?
That's great.
Instead of naming because how can you say one's better than the other?
Yeah.
When there's so many good ones.
Right.
He said, I like that. So we'll do a black tie. We'll do like an Academy Awards. He said, I love it. Get to work on it. So I got to work on it, and that's how it started.
Great. So there's 36 teachers that have been recognized. Is that right?
For the last year, and Attorney King has been very supportive and supporting and backing them. And I'll tell you, there would not be an event. We can come up with ideas all day long, but you got to show me the money.
Yeah, exactly.
And he doesn't get involved unless he really believes that something's going to be really positive in the community. He's a great community representative of San Diego, all of San Diego. Nobody could ask for a better friend in the community than Attorney King. That's just the fact. It's just the way it is.
Great.
He does so many things that nobody even hear about. I can tell you things that I can't tell you because he did things like for people that didn't have anything to eat many, many times and would not want his name involved with it.
Wow.
He's just that type of person. He's out there. He's flashy.
Oh yeah.
He has the cars. He
It's
has the
all
billboards.
for the right reasons. Yeah.
But when you get down to knowing the individual, he's a very good-hearted, simplistic individual who really cares about people.
Wow. Interesting. Great. Well, and that's April 16th at Sequan.
And they're a great partner also. And then with that, we also have IB Fitness, which is also a good partner. We have, of course, IQPodcast, the magazine, and of course, KCBQ Radio. Who's that? Oh, and then of course, one of our best, how can I forget, Indian Motorcycles and Tim Broadhead for what he does. He's just an amazing individual with a great story. And he does a podcast with us too. Since COVID happened, he's kind of taken a back seat. But so Indian Motorcycles also been a very phenomenal partner to work with. And just, I find that what I'm finding through our media is we're finding a lot of community members that really want to help people. And we need that more than ever right now. And I think 2021 is going to end up being a very strong year,
of course,
for what we're trying to do.
Yeah, we need more things like that. So what's the future hold? Where do you see IQ Podcast a year, 2 years, 5 years from now?
So I see us being eventually the biggest media conglomerate in the world.
Wow.
I don't see it. I see it as far as our information getting out, the numbers, And the digital component is going to be a huge part of that, of course. But with that, we'll also be telling the stories the way we are now with a bigger team and more people that really care about reaching out and helping people. Because again, I don't want this to be just an environment where people come to collect a check.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you have to pay the bills and you got to collect a check. I want it to be an environment where people are like, my job isn't just collecting a check. I just changed this person's life today by doing this. I want everybody involved with the team to have a piece of that action. So that way, this is just more than just a job. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of all of us being different, but yet we all across the world can reach out and help people with different challenges.
That's impressive. Well,
that's the vision.
Yeah. Well, you got to have the vision, and you've started well on the way.
But you need to be involved with the right people that get it and good people that understand and also are very good at what they do, because there's no way that I could do this myself or Sarah. There's no way we could do it. So we would have to have a way to grow it. So I think the best way, of course, is to go back to those community people.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, that's thanks for the introduction. I learned a lot more about what you do, and I want to thank you for being my guest.
Oh, I'm honored to be your guest.
Thank you for.
And you're going to be doing your own show.
Absolutely, yeah.
Tell us a little about your show.
We're going to have some community leaders like yourself, people that focusing on people that give back to the community, people that help each other. Some people that maybe don't have a way to get the word out otherwise about what they do, and just good people. Good people doing good things. That's all we're about.
Well, I think it's going to be great. And so you're the Beyond the Bridge is courses in what city?
Well, Beyond the Bridge is in Coronado. We're published in Coronado. They come in the mailboxes once a month to residents of Coronado. We also, Local Umbrella does various community publications all over the county, and we're growing really fast.
I think you're going to find a lot of good stories in Coronado.
Well, I'll bet there are. Yeah, we've already thought of and
a lot of great organizations. Have you noticed when you drive in Coronado what you first see? I mean, when you first get into where that island area is over there, the first island area when you come into this area.
Okay.
Do you know what it is?
Well, I'm going to say the golf course, but what?
So when you first come in, you come down to our street where our office is at. They have all the signs of all the community
organizations
and clubs.
When you get the okay.
It's the only city that I know of that has that many bunched together like that. It's just very unique, I think. It makes you realize that this is a city that is a community-based city.
Yes.
I don't know very many cities that have all of those groups like that. Do you?
No, I don't. No. And Coronado's, I mean, what better place to have that? Yeah, it's just a beautiful city. So thanks for inviting me over here.
Thank you for coming into our lives. And I know your show is going to be successful, and we look forward to watching it grow.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Well, that's our show for the day. And I want to thank our sponsors, Attorney King, Sequan Casino, Indian Motorcycles, The Gym, Serranos of Coronado, and IB Fitness. Brett Davis, thank you very much for spending time with me today.
I had a great time. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.